Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. Tonight, I would like to start by discussing recent issues in White Plains. The most pressing is very disturbing. I had heard this today, is that on Saturday at 2 a.m., there was a homicide on the Post Road. Again, I haven't heard this officially. I'm trying to find out more information. I see it is already spreading on Facebook and other internet platforms. The shop owners, I went to talk to the shop owners in the area, and I received a little bit of detail. Whether this is factual or not, again, I want to make it very clear. This is what I was told. And so this is third party, that there was a fight ensued and a person was out on the street fighting four other people, and someone got into their SUV and repeatedly ran somebody over, and the person had died. So that is something I did not hear on the news. I didn't hear it anywhere in White Plains, which is something I really want to discuss because this has happened quite a bit on the campaign trail. Many people have told me that there is safety issues, that we do have more crime than is being reported. So I've interviewed people at the city center, and I heard about a stabbing there. I heard about a slashing there. Then I know there was another stabbing in another part of town. I received footage of a home invasion, and when we started to discuss that, two other people told me that they had home invasions. There was the shooting. So these things are happening, but they're not widely reported, and I'm very, very concerned about that. I think that at this point, no neighborhood is immune. There's been car break-ins around the city as well. So I'd like people to weigh in on that. If they had any incident in White Plains, there was also another incident that was reported on Facebook. A woman reported, and that was very disturbing as well. So we want to know about this. We want to know about it because if we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. So I really want to get this information out there. So please, I want to make this completely interactive. I want people to ask questions. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And if they have any information, especially about the safety, I want to know about that. The next issue I would like to discuss is it came up during the League of Women Voters Forum. I was asked a question about reassessment, and I gave my views about that reassessing the property in White Plains would be very unfair, and it would chase seniors out, young families, actually any of the real working people around the city who can't afford for their taxes to go up $1,000 a month. Now, of course, I don't know exactly how much it would go up, but reassessments around the country generally cause a huge spike in taxes, especially on the older homes. The older homes are assessed value right now is low. They're older, they need more maintenance. There's many reasons why. They happen to have a good price on the market, though. You can get a lot of money for an old home because they have low taxes. Once you reassess it, it'll start to devalue that home. It's very unfair. It causes the seniors and working families who cannot afford that tax increase to leave. When we have a glut of those homes hit the market and people leaving that have to leave quickly because they can't afford it anymore, it will devalue those homes again because now they have high taxes. They're not worth as much. And once that happens, they sell for cheaper value, and then somebody else buys it at a lower price. And when they do, they file a certiorari and they reduce the taxes back down. Meanwhile, we chased out a senior or a working family out of White Plains. So I tried to explain it in the very short period of time I had at the League of Women voters forum. Not their fault, but it's a forum where time is limited, and I get it. My opponent did not answer the question. I know he's an attorney. I believe he's a landlord-tenant attorney, and he said he can't answer that question. He wanted to be transparent that he does not know enough about assessments. I found that very hard to believe because most people around town know what an assessment is and how it can affect your taxes. So that is a big issue. I'd like people to weigh in on that because I will fight reassessments, especially in the current form in which they have done in other areas where it chases seniors and working families out. The other item that I'd like to discuss tonight is there's been actually 2 Common Council meetings that were special meetings that came up over the last probably a week. And one was concerning a change to the supplemental building code of White Plains due to the collapse of the partial collapse of a floor on the garage. The issue surrounding that is what I heard, because that came up at the Battle Hill Forum, is that the council did that so that they can enforce the New York state law that these garages require engineering reports. And that does require review by the building department. However, I was a code enforcement officer for the city of White Plains, and you do not need a special law to enforce New York state law. The code enforcement officers are required to enforce that law. So I'm not really sure what that's about. We found out that I think it was CBS did an investigative report and found out 40 garages have not had inspections. So that's a big issue. So they called council had a special meeting with regard to that. The other thing is last night they had a special meeting and they actually went into executive session. And for those of you who don't know what executive session is, that is when the council gets to go into private, and it's a meeting in secret that they are not revealing to the public. And there is very specific use cases for that. If you're discussing personnel files, things like that, that has to be an executive session. You do not want that out in the public. The other reasons are generally if there's a lawsuit or something that can put the city at risk, that they can't talk about this in public. And that could actually be certain types of real estate transactions that will, by discussing them in public, will affect the sale price of the property. We're not really sure what they were discussing because they were discussing what they said is the sale of real property of the city of White Plains. So there's a lot of assumptions going on out there. I'm really not sure why we couldn't know about that. So those are the items I'd like to discuss. So I see we have questions coming up. So here's one. So, all right. So the one question from Lisa is there do seem to be a lot of arrests weekly that safety posts. The transit center garage is as bad as the city center, etc. Which garage is your priority? Well, as far as safety, I just want to be clear on that. Lisa, if you could send in, are you discussing safety when it's regard to personal safety due to attacks or some criminal element, or are you talking about the safety of the garage? Because both are a problem in the city right now. So I'll wait for that response and I'll come back to your question. Next question. Brian, I just drove to a restaurant, White Plains. My question is, how do people not see that there is a major problem? The infrastructure is horrible all around, and I feel like I'm driving through New York City. Well, Brian, I've heard that all over the place. I myself, this is one of the reasons why I'm running, because I was born and raised in White Plains, and White Plains is a city I love. And it has recently, to me, looks like it's on a downturn. And I don't like it at all, and that's why I'm running. My children really were concerned about me running. Why would I do this? So I had worked for the city many, many years, and then I moved on to the private sector. And in a couple of years, I could retire and live a great life. I could make a lot more money. It would be just very easy for me. But I was not happy with what was happening to the city I love. And so it really troubled me, and I decided to enter the race, and I spoke to my children. And I said, look, anytime it's one of your birthdays and we're going to go out to dinner, you never want to go downtown to White Plains. And they said, why? It's dirty. You're going to get a ticket, and that's if you can find a parking space. It does not look family friendly at all. They said, why would we do that when there's so many other places around? And that troubled me a lot. And I said, that's exactly it. I said, either we'll end up putting a sign on our lawn and selling our house, which I do not want to do, or I have to try to do something about it. I'm not a career politician. This is why I'm running. So, you know, it's obvious what's going on. We have, the police do an excellent job, but I think it's more of leadership. What do we want in our city? When I left working for the city 16 years ago, we had obviously the cruisers, we had foot patrols, we had bicycle patrols, we had motorcycle patrols, and we had mounted police. And everybody knew the police officer's name who was on that beat, and it was very much community policing. That has gone away. And I think bringing that will go a long way. But keep in mind, we also had more police on the job back then. I know my opponent has mentioned several times that they've been adding to the police every year, police and fire, but we had more back then. So the math doesn't really add up. So I agree. I think we have to do a much better job. When I bring up something else, and this may sound silly, but we were so concerned with how the city looked that when I worked for the city, the mayor at the time was Mayor Joe Delfino, and he had us, the city, buy gum buster machines to remove the gum from the sidewalk because he said that looked terrible. He said, if you want people to come here, enjoy our restaurants and shops, it has to look clean. We have to keep crime down. We have to make it friendly for people to want to be here. And I agree with that. So that's an excellent question. I don't know how everybody doesn't see it. I think most people do, though. Okay. So Lisa came back, and she was referring to White Plains Public Safety. They send a weekly Facebook post that lists types of arrest. There are 45 to 65 incidents weekly, which seems high. Yes, it does seem high. And I also believe that we have many other incidents that are, I don't want to accuse anybody, but it just seems strange, that are downplayed. Because I don't see anything on the news of the more horrific crimes, slashing, stabbings. I did see the one stabbing on the news, and obviously we saw that shooting on the news. But the one home invasion that we had got the video of, and then as that we released that, 2 other people contacted me and said that happened in their house. So those very much concern me. And there has to be a big focus on that because safety is our priority. We have to have our residents and visitors safe. So I can tell you, if I'm elected mayor, that will be a major priority. Okay. So this would be Mom Zerk. Interesting conversation with Justin Brash on citizens to be heard, re-garage inspections. He says city-owned garages have an annual engineering inspection by an outside firm. See his reply. Okay, so this is interesting because if we've had an annual inspection, I don't know what to tell you. Just walk into the garages. We've had water infiltration through the slabs. I was a code enforcement officer, so I know something about this, that you have water dripping right through the slabs. While that water coming through those slabs without them being sealed with the water infiltration and the chloride that has now attached itself to the steel, you're going to have the steel expand as it weakens, and you're going to blow out the concrete, which you see everywhere. You see it falling. You see falling concrete in the garages. Just go into the Hamilton, Maine. When you pull in, if you pull into that garage, you'll see on one wall, they had to close off that area because you could see the steel all rusted out. If you want to go to the library garages, the columns are all rusted. I understand they have to be replaced. Now you have beams, you see them cracked, you see water pouring in everywhere. That type of stuff has to be maintained. If you don't maintain it, you're going to have millions of dollars worth of repair around the city. And obviously we haven't maintained this stuff in years. Just go in back of the city center. The steps are they're hanging off the side of the building. The roadway back there has collapsed. So I have my suspicions of what caused that. But these are things that were easily maintained and neglected. And now it's going to cost the taxpayer a lot of money. So that's definitely a problem. I cannot see how we've had annual inspections and we didn't take care of it. That's even worse. And for anybody who's involved in our government right now, any of the administration, to say they didn't see it, that's a problem. Because you can go into any of these garages and you can see it. You could see it in the train station garage, the library garage. You could see it in the Hamilton, Maine garage. You could see it in other buildings as well. Look at Fire Station 2. The firemen had to leave there because the ceiling was leaking. The roof was leaking for so long. Pieces of the ceiling were falling. The firemen were living with rats, roaches, and mice. I said, that's unconscionable. And the firemen left there for a period of time until the city finally decided to do something about it. And they only adopted the approval for that at a common council meeting after I brought it up at the WPCNA forum. Because that's very serious, because that meant the firemen had at least, approximately 8-10 minute more response time, especially to the Battle Hill neighborhood. That's serious. 2 minutes is life and death. And that was not even reported to the Battle Hill residents. So thank you very much for that question. And I'd be happy to discuss that further on a phone call. I got a very nice one from Patricia that I'm very informative and I want to move to White Plains so I could vote for you. Thank you very much, Patricia. I appreciate that. And from Susan, free parking at night for restaurant visitors would be good. You know, that's come up quite a bit. We have to do something to make parking more friendly. Now, I know that we have to get some revenue from parking because that is supposed to help maintain our parking. It hasn't been doing a great job as of late, and I know we're making a lot of revenue from it. But making parking more difficult and less friendly, and where people get tickets, they don't have the grace period that we're supposed to have. And I did a video on this, if you're parked slightly over the line. Now, this is not to besmirch any of our parking people. They're doing their jobs as directed by this administration. And they're trying to subsidize our budget through parking revenues. But that also chases people out of White Plains. People are not visiting White Plains, not spending their money here, and it's hurting our sales tax revenue, and also hurting our small businesses. So I agree with you. We should do a lot more to at least, we could try to do some free parking at times. We could see what we can do. But at least we have to make it easier and more affordable for people to come down to White Plains. And this way they can enjoy our restaurants, our shops, and make it more lively down here. Oh, Connor, I got a very nice one. Best of luck, Lenny. If I was a White Plains resident, you'd have my vote. Thank you very much, Connor. Okay. Let's see what else. Now, also, I want to mention the items I brought up are not the only. You can ask me any question that you feel is on your mind. Sorry, Lisa, you did want to know which is my priority. The transit center garage is as bad as the city center. So the city center garage itself, I don't see as many problems as the trans center garage, actually. The city center has a problem with the steps in the back and the collapsed roadway. I understand when I did a video about that, the city now decided to repair that. It's like they're chasing me. Every time I come out with something, like I brought up when I first entered the race, that people who serve our city can't afford to live here. So now workforce housing is a big issue to them. It's the same thing every time I bring up a problem in the city, it's another big issue. So they're going to fix the steps back there in the roadway, but the transit center garage needs a lot more work. So that would be the priority. With the city center garage, they have to do more maintenance. It's not quite as old. They have to make sure there's not water infiltration, so it ends up the same as the transit center. But they should be doing that maintenance on every garage. They should be looked at annually and make sure there is not water infiltration into those slabs. It is much cheaper to maintain than to replace. So city center, they should be doing that anyway. As far as the transit center, they have work to do there. Like I brought up, the doors were hanging off when I went there one day to the stairwells. So now they're gone. So instead of fixing them, just remove them. Why do we need the doors? I guess that's the thought process. The handrails, some of them you can knock over. They've started to fix those. They did some patching on the ceilings where it was really bad and they had caution tape all over the place because of spalling concrete. However, when I looked at it, you could see the lines falling. It looks like they did a cosmetic patch. Of course, I don't know exactly what they did, but I should not start to see the patch separate within weeks. So the trans center needs a full engineering report. And I can promise you, if elected, I'm looking at those reports. I want to see that all of this is done. I'm not just concerned with the garages. I want to be clear. Are we doing the boiler inspections like we should on commercial properties? Are we getting the insurance certificates on these where the insurance company inspects them if they're a high pressure steam boiler? Those could be really dangerous. There's many things throughout the city. And having worked for the city for as many years as I have, I started in the building department as a code enforcement officer. And I automated almost all of the building department before I was asked to do that for the whole city. So I know the building department pretty much inside and out, and the rest of the departments as well. We have to make sure that everybody is doing their job. And I can promise you that I will do that. Okay, let's see. Okay. So yes, there's it says Mom Mazurk, sorry, Justin wants to answer me in a phone call, not very transparent, essentially asking if you'd make these reports public. Yes, they should be. Most of the information is supposed to be public, and you should be able to foil any of this information as well. Okay, John, as a person who worked for the city for 39 years, 7 mayors, I visited for a couple of weeks and would like to know if all these delivery bicycles with milk crates strapped on have a background check. Some I saw were suspicious. Could be a problem. Not all, but some. So I believe they should have to be registered. There's the same, I'll give you an example. Some of them are flying down the streets. I actually witnessed them at the Trans Center garage repairing them. They had a whole section of one of the floors where a crew was repairing all these bikes, and they come in and they take them out. It looked like some kind of commercial operation. But these things are going faster than their design speed in many cases. So what I have heard is that they eliminate the limiters on them so they can go faster. Many of them wear all black helmets, no reflectors, and they're zipping around town at night. And if they're doing 30, 40 miles an hour and they hit a pedestrian, they could kill them, especially a child. So we really have to get this under control. I realize people are trying to make a living and we want to have deliveries, but this is out of control. If that was a gasoline powered bike, they would have to have it registered. And why? Just because it's electric, they don't have to. So I believe that has to be taken care of. So this says, bring back the holiday free parking from Christina. So I do understand that Justin has said he brought back a few days, or that he had requested a few days and the council agreed with it. Of course, I have no way of knowing whose ideas these things were. However, we used to have free parking on holidays. We used to bag the meters. So I want to know how it disappeared. We want to make this a friendly city so people shop here and we get our sales tax revenue up. We also want people to enjoy our restaurants. So this is very important. I agree with you. So, Mazur, can the ticket agents be trained and used for traffic control too? Prime spots are near the train station in 119 Battle Avenue BRP entrance. I don't know if they can, because traffic control is a skill and an art. We used to have police officers who were spectacular at it. I forgot the officer's name, but he was spectacular. There was one who wore white gloves. He was great. We moved traffic through White Plains at an unbelievable pace, and there was no issues when he was on the job. But I know we have less officers now, and it may be that's the problem. We can't afford to do it. But that is something we should have more police officers doing traffic control, especially in the bad intersections. And those are intersections that are a problem. I can tell you that. I've seen it. So I agree with that. Okay, Ray. If you're elected, how would you address the chronic traffic and pedestrian safety issues affecting Battle Avenue, like speeding, drag racing, every weekend on Chatterton Parkway and Alexander, congestion from cut-through traffic to Central, not stopping at marked crosswalks, etc.? Battle Hill residents have been complaining about these issues for decades, and nothing happens. So this came up during the Battle Hill Forum. Obviously, something has to be done. I remember I worked for the city. There was a young mother who was killed on Chatterton Parkway, and it was very, very sad. And the city back then, it was right before I left, and right before Mayor Delfino left, that this was going to be addressed, and nothing was done. So there's a lot of talk about it now from my opponent, but of course, because it's an election year. But for a decade, nothing has been done, and that is very, very sad that they were forgotten about. We do have congestion from cut-through traffic. That is terrible. We should figure out a way how to limit that. There was some talk, people suggested stop signs. And we can, although some people say we can't, we have to show, there is a process to show why we need a stop sign. But I could tell you that I have seen this before. I saw several accidents at one intersection. And when I asked, why can't we get a stop sign there? And it was told to me at the time, well, nobody's died there yet. We should not wait for that. It doesn't mean we could just throw them up anywhere, but we do have the right to do a study and present our case why there should be one. I know that sorry about that. There's sirens going. People have asked for speed bumps. They decided to do a test in another end of town, which didn't really make sense to me since Battle Hill has been asking for these for years. But I was told that's not a speed bump, that I was wrong, is that it's a speed cushion. Now, actually, if you drive there, it says speed hump on the side. So I don't know really what that's all about, but I don't think that should have been placed there. It should have been tested in the areas where you have the most problems. I think we should talk to the businesses in that area, because I understand Honda does test drives up that road. They should not be doing that. We should talk to them to get that to stop. But I think that if we do a traffic study there and make our case, take it seriously, because it hasn't been taken seriously for all this time, we can get this taken care of. It doesn't have to be a 10, 15-year problem. We just order a traffic study there. We have the people who are skilled in our traffic department, and we get this taken care of now. So, Tim, what happened at the no transparency closed door meeting last night? Okay. Just want to let you know that. Okay. So this is interesting because we have no idea. So I know that there was many people who came to the meeting, and the planning commissioner spoke this was all at the pre-meeting, and then they went into the executive session. And that's the problem I have with executive session, that nobody really knows. And the only way to find out what happened, since the council members are not allowed to disclose what was discussed, is if you had somebody there who would challenge the status quo and say, I don't agree with what was discussed. It shouldn't have been at the executive session. This should have been in front of the public. And then they can file a lawsuit against that. They're not allowed to disclose it, but we can get to that process and find out exactly what was done after this is challenged. If somebody on the council challenged it and took it to court, maybe we would find out. I'd have to find out all the legal ramifications of that. But right now, that's never going to happen. When they call executive session, you'll never find out what had happened at that session. And that's pretty serious. So what are my thoughts? This is from Dominic. What are my thoughts about city homeless population? So I have heard all kinds of things about what people feel about the homeless. And I've been told that it's their right to sleep on the street, that this is all their right. It is not humane. The temperatures are dropping. They have been sleeping on the street, and our homeless population is growing. We should be working directly with the county and find out if they have enough facilities to house these people. because if they're sleeping on the street, where are their bathroom facilities? We've heard plenty of stories. People have watched what's going on. I won't go into it. It's too disgusting to talk about what's going on. And we have to feel for these people, because the reason why someone's homeless, if you really drill it down, is because they could be addicted, they could have mental illness, or they could have had something very terrible happen in their life. In any one of those cases, they need help. And we shouldn't just say, we'll throw a tarp on them and let them sleep on the street. We had people building tents. We had pictures of it. We had a person walking around naked, I think it was a week ago. These people need help. I've spoken to many of them now, and we really have to address this. It is not humane. I had a restaurant owner reach out that he was losing business because a homeless man was sleeping in the entrance of his restaurant. I went to talk to the restaurant owner because obviously he was losing a lot of business. And when I got there, the police were carrying that person, or actually EMS, putting him in an ambulance, and he did not look like he was in good shape. So I don't know if he made it. That is not humane. If we did something about that, he would have been much better off. So it's bad for our businesses. It's bad to make the city family friendly, and it is bad for the homeless. We have to address this now. So, Ray, what is my position on the delivery bike guys that congregate at the little park between Grace Church and Red Horse? They use Grace Park as a garage for their e-bikes, waiting for delivery orders to come through. So, obviously, I don't like it. I think if we do a registration process, and this is not to break these people, that's not the purpose. We have to make sure they're safe and our public is safe. But we do a registration process, and we may be able to provide them a safe place to do their business, to have their business running appropriately and not scattered all over the sidewalks. I was walking down Mamaroneck Avenue, this was right after, or actually during, Blocktoberfest. And one whole section of the block was blocked off with e-bikes. I had to walk around them. They were on the sidewalk. Now, you're not supposed to drive your regular bike on the sidewalk, but you can block the whole sidewalk with e-bikes. No, we need a safe place where they can work on their bikes, and that could be all part of the registration process. And that should be looked at, and that should be taken care of immediately as well. That does not seem like a difficult process at all. We should start working on that right away. I got a message from Buki, and the police officer who used to direct the traffic that wore the white gloves and was spectacular was I'm trying to pronounce it right. Olsi, if I said it right. I apologize if I didn't, but yes, he was spectacular. Thank you. So, Mrs. Quackalicious. Hey, Lenny, how are you? My parents are asking about your opinion and your plan on the excessive number of marijuana stores on Mamaroneck. I'm assuming Mamaroneck Avenue, obviously. Getting a lot of complaints about that. That seems to be the growing number of stores we have. Now, initially, I heard we were going to have 4. Then I heard we were going to have 5. And now it just keeps growing. So I really have to look into the permitting process for that, find out what's going on. I know we're getting a ton of complaints about people openly smoking all along Mamaroneck Avenue, and families afraid to walk down the streets and walk with their little children. You rarely see people walk with little children on Mamaroneck Avenue. It's not as common anymore, and that's one of the problems. So we definitely, I think we have to get a group of community people involved. I believe in involving the community in a lot of these discussions. They should be involved in all the discussions, quite frankly, where we bring people in and we discuss how can we come to a balanced approach on this. Because to have marijuana shops every so many feet and you can't walk down Mamaroneck Avenue with your children, that's not good as well. So I agree. So there was a comment from Mrs. Quackalicious again that we don't have enough facilities, and this is referring to the homeless shelters, because Roach's admin doesn't want to put up more shelters for homeless with proper resources, just more luxury buildings. And I've heard that, um, from many, many residents, that what we're doing is we're building all these luxury buildings. Now I know they're saying they're trying to add more affordable housing, but that's not affordable for these people. Quite the contrary. Even at the most affordable rate, there's no way. So we need facilities, and whether that is working with the county, looking for state funding, we need to do something. And the facilities just can't be a bed where someone goes to sleep that night. They have to have the proper facilities for treatment. So if they're an addict, we can help them get off of whatever they're on. If there's mental illness, we treat that. If they need another form of help because they had some catastrophic event, we deal with it. Not just a bed to sleep tonight and throw them back on the street. So I agree we have to do something, and we may have to work with other agencies on that. I could tell you in my experience with code enforcement, I had to shut down homes because they were so dangerous. And I can tell you one night I went out and I make an inspection. It's the last one on Christmas Eve, and I have to shut down the home. It was frightening. I don't know how many children were in the house. Absolutely frightening. And I called every agency and nobody would help. And I couldn't put these people out on the street because it was absolutely frigid out. It was one of the coldest Christmas Eves we had. So I worked with the commissioner and others, and we stayed on Christmas Eve as late as we had to find people who would give up space to put these people who would now be homeless in because they had nowhere to go. Now, we did that because, that was in all of our nature. That's the people we had working for White Plains. And we still have people like that. But there should have been facilities. The county should have been responsible. I know because I called social services and they said they had nothing and couldn't help at the time. So we jumped in and did it. I wasn't a social worker, nor was any of the people working on this. And we found them all this very large family place to live. So we do need more places. Absolutely. So let's see. So just to make sure I did not mispronounce the name, someone else wrote in that it's Beolsi. So very good. Thank you, Tim, for sending that in. And I got one from Rose. Lenny, you're the man. You are the man for mayor. You have the experience, the leadership skills, and you have the passion and the heart. Thank you very much. And we have one from Suzanne. Flooding is a major issue for many homeowners in White Plains. How would you address this? Simply cleaning the storm drains isn't a solution. Additionally, how would you ensure the green space of Baldwin Farm would be preserved and not developed? Okay, so flooding is a major issue in a lot of areas of White Plains. White Plains had lot of streams, a lot of like if you look at the Bronx River, obviously, the Hutchinson River, the Mamaroneck River, which runs under Mamaroneck Avenue. When I inspected the Y years back, you could see that it actually ran under the Y. And these streams and everything percolate up. I mean, even if you look where I live in Gedney Farms, there's a lot of water. Um, I think we're going to need a major assessment on that. That's not going to be an easy solution. Flooding is never easy. We have this problem all over White Plains. I could tell you, even at my house, when I was doing work there, and we had to open up the trap, and I was needing plumbing inspections for that. Filed all the permits. We saw that when they built those homes, many of them, they connected the stormwater to the sewer. That went on back then, like nobody cared. And this is going way back. So we corrected the whole issue, and I spent a lot of money to correct it, to do it right and under permit. So I was able to solve mine, but that's because I was already doing work. So it was an additional cost. It wasn't cheap, but it was an additional cost. If you had to do that yourself from scratch, it's very expensive. We do have an extensive storm drainage system, but to connect to that, it's very, very difficult. People just pump out onto the street, and you have an icing condition on the many roads. We've seen that. It is very difficult. I think we need a full assessment of what areas are flooding the most and move on from there. I do not have an easy answer to that. I know a lot of areas that are in trouble. I know Gedney Farms has that. I know, well, you just look at this. Water Street was known to have water. We had a lot of areas around White Plains that have this issue. Additionally, how would I ensure that the green space of Waldwood Farm would be preserved and not developed? So I'd have to look at that as well to see what it is zoned for. And there's much that would have to be checked on that to preserve the green space. I agree we have to preserve green space. We had a prime opportunity with Ridgeway Country Club. The city was offered that property, and we turned it down. I don't know why. So that'll be developed, and we'll give up all that green space. I hear our mayor and council say all the time, we got to preserve green space. What did they do about Ridgeway Country Club? That did not seem to be a priority at that time. So I will make it a priority. I do not like giving up green space just at a whim. Absolutely not. Would I fix this is from Christopher, would I fix the traffic patterns that the former mayor made horrible? Absolutely. So when I worked for the city, I worked in conjunction with the traffic department. They had the best traffic system. It was done by a company, the software was by a company, Transcore, if I remember correctly. It's a long time ago. And our system was phenomenal. We had loops in the road so we could detect traffic. The computer kept track of everything. The lights were controlled by that. We also had the lights go green for all emergency vehicles when an alarm was pulled, and red for everybody else. And that just enhanced the flow of traffic. So everybody was clearing out of the way in front of any emergency vehicles. We had many things in place. I could tell you that I think their plan is to make the traffic patterns even worse. I think it was called Vision Safe program that they want to adopt. And that was at the library. And I have no problem with their goal, but how they want to achieve it is, I think, is completely wrong. What they want to do, they were talking about making even more major changes to our traffic patterns, changing certain one ways to two ways, adding bike lanes with curbing, narrowing the streets. And the idea was to slow traffic much more so that if there was an accident, it was less chance of fatalities. Right now, it takes a long time to get down Mamaroneck Avenue. We cannot, we cannot assume that that's the best way to do it, is to just slow traffic down to a crawl. If we got rid of all cars, then there wouldn't be any vehicular accidents or fatalities due to that. So I do think we have to concentrate on it again. I will look into the traffic system, I can tell you, because I'm very familiar with it. So I will absolutely look into it. A lot of these issues I'm familiar with because I've worked in every department while I did technology. I founded the IT and I worked in all these departments, so I understand the technology in each department. And doing so, I had to learn the function of the department. So can easily look into these things very, very quickly and get results. Okay, so Christopher asks about the bike lanes and that they were not made thoughtfully, nor were the set of changes to North Broadway. So yes, that's about the traffic patterns. Again, yes, I will look into them. And I agree about the bike lanes. I've been an avid bike rider and I don't like the bike lanes, especially when they put them in and then they allow the trees to grow out across the bike lanes. So you have a false sense of security until you look up and a branch is in your face. And then you're flying out into traffic. Glass in the bike lanes, it doesn't work. If you're not going to maintain it, why are you putting it in? You're putting people at risk. Another question about absentee landlords and overcrowding. Well, this we fought a great deal when I was a code enforcement officer. I remember we worked tirelessly on this back in the day. I could tell you all the places I actually had to go through and correct. There was places all along South Broadway. I could tell you when I was involved in the Coachman Hotel, that was a disaster when I walked in. Absolute disaster. They didn't even have means of getting out of that building. So we had them put up that additional enclosed fire stairwell. We had many things fixed in there just to make the people safe. The overcrowding is terrible. So I'd have to look into exactly where the problems are. And that should be always taken care of. That shouldn't have to be like a task force going and take care of it. If there's overcrowding and it's putting people at risk, we should be taking care of it. Okay. Dominic, what are my thoughts about the redevelopment at the old Galleria Mall? So that's real disturbing because I don't know how 7 high-rise towers will be there. I understand the council accepted the final environmental impact statement. There's many problems I have with that because it doesn't really detail any serious environmental impacts. If you put 7 high-rise towers, you're going to have impacts. And I'm not saying you don't build because of that. I'm saying when you have an environmental impact, then you figure out a way to remediate it. That's what development is. But to say you're not going to have anything serious, to me, is ridiculous. You put in a home, you can have an environmental impact. And just to be clear, environmental impact does not mean strictly the environment like people think as far as green or things like that. It means traffic, schooling, your view. It can mean anything: sewer, water, electric supply, gas supply. It's anything. Traffic, pedestrian traffic as well. So to say none of that's going to be seriously affected, I have a problem with. I don't like the idea of 7 high-rise towers. I can tell you right now, we don't need all these towers. I think most people agree. I think that to jump at the first proposal, I'm not a fan. Last night there was the commissioner of planning went through the zoning ordinance changes that they want to make. And I think they actually weren't spread across the minutes because they noted them as draft. But if that's not right, I'd stand corrected. But they were talking about raising the height limit to 450 feet in some areas and 420 in others. I think it's going to have a negative effect on the area. I also don't like the fact that the final environmental impact statement, my opponent had said that he's been talking and meeting with Capelli privately, and that they agreed upon 500 additional affordable units, but the final environmental impact statement, which has that word final in it that was accepted, does not have those in it. In fact, that number's bounced around from each different revision. So I'll tell you one other thing. At the Battle Hill Forum, he said these projects are like, I think he said living beings or something to that effect, and that they're going to change over time, and that it's rarely that they come out as the plans show. I don't know. I want to see the plans of what they're building, and that's what it should be. If they want to file an amendment and it makes sense, and it's not where it's just going to keep morphing, that's different. I can understand something changed. But to say these are like living beings and they're going to keep changing, and it's rarely ever what they proposed, I have a problem with. Okay. So this is from John, that he was visiting the city again, and he went to visit some of his coworkers, and that he could see most of them. But he only knew a handful of them, did not know 80% of them. I asked the senior guys, and the answer was DPW is the lowest paid municipality, lower than Mount Vernon. The administration boasting how great a city we are, but won't raise salaries to draw the people who want to take pride of their job. I've heard that from all of them. And I know that. Our municipal workers are not really appreciated here by our leaders in the city. The administration has not taken care of them. We lose a lot of them. They think that that's a good idea. We're saving money, but we lose them, and then we have to train somebody else. They're not taking into account what it costs to train somebody and how efficient good employees are. The good people will be here for a while, get trained, and move on. I've heard the same thing from police and fire. It's all across the board in White Plains. We have to start taking care of and appreciating our municipal employees. They can't afford to live here. That's a problem. What are my thoughts on the many, this is from Ray, what are my thoughts on many empty storefronts in the downtown? Should there be vacancy fines imposed? I've had a bunch of thoughts on this. First of all, I think that some of it's the city's fault. You know, if we should have more parking. We should have it easily accessible. We should make White Plains family friendly so these businesses could thrive. The reason why they don't thrive is just like my children said, they don't like to come downtown White Plains. That's a problem. So I think some of the onus is on the city. But also the landlords like to get as highest rent as they can, and we've seen that before. What I want to look is at our tax structure for that, because in the past I had heard, and I don't know, I have to look into it more. I want to make sure that there's not any tax incentives anywhere, that if it's vacant, they have an incentive. This way, it would behoove them to not have it vacant for long. And that's what we want to do. We want to do something. I don't know if we would do vacancy fines. I'd have to look into that. Okay. Okay, this is from Luke at 23. When elected, can we invest in bike racks for downtown White Plains, specifically Renaissance Plaza and Park? I don't have a problem with that, as long as everybody follows the appropriate rules. I don't want people riding up and down the sidewalks. They're not supposed to be doing that anyway. The police used to give out tickets for skateboarders, bicycles riding on the sidewalks. They used to stop it. If you had police around, on the beat, you'd see people wouldn't be doing that. But I do not have a problem with bicycle racks in certain areas of the town. Okay. Vicky, currently at the transit center parking garage, there is no way to find out where you are in the waiting list. And even if you're actually on the wait list, at the parking office, we were told that they weren't allowed to give out that information. When you become mayor, is there some sort of online system that could be set up so we can see where you are in the waiting list? Well, technically, that could be done in a day. It's not a technical issue at all. It is why they don't want to give the information. I don't know why they wouldn't. So if there's no way you're ever going to get one, so you could start looking at something else. That seems only fair. So I would look at that right away, and I'd want to hear an explanation of why they don't want to release that information. But technically, you could just post that. That'd be real easy. DV. White Plains would be lucky to have you as a mayor. I still rent my house there. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I left White Plains because I didn't think it was safe enough for my children. And right now, I agree with that. I've seen issues about that around White Plains. That's when I opened up, that's what's concerning me. I want all neighborhoods to be safe. White Plains was a block our cars in the past. Now I know the world's changed. I get it, but I'm not talking that far in the distant past. This is not something that I'm talking about in the 50s and 60s. So White Plains has changed, and I think we can really improve upon safety in White Plains, especially if we start being transparent about it and not making it appear differently than it is, so then we don't have to address it. But thank you. Okay, from Susan, you have an impressive understanding of every aspect of the city. I'm confident you'll make an excellent mayor and do great things for the city of White Plains. Thank you very much. And Marissa, what are my views on ICE? I have friends that are unsure what they are. So this is a very tough question. I don't beat around the bush on this at all. With ICE, we are not going to be able to stop the federal government from doing their enforcement. I get that. But I also get that this is a very tough issue for many people, and they're worried about it. But as I said to my opponent, it started out at the WPCNA forum, as I said, do we want to go to war with ICE? White Plains has never been on the radar on any of these federal issues. We follow the law and we stay out of these big issues. But if we come out and say we're not allowing ICE in here at all, that's almost an invitation, in my view, that you're not going to stop them. What they do is they come in with troops, and then we look like LA, Boston, Chicago, anywhere else that we have these big problems. What we should be doing is we should be looking at a dialogue. We want to know who the felons are, who they want to come and get. So when this question was posed to me at the WPCNA debate, and I brought that forward, they said, well, ICE came in and arrested somebody and he wasn't a felon. And when I asked, well, how do we know? Did anybody talk to ICE? And they said yes. And they said they were coming to get him because he was a felon. So I'd help investigate what's the problem is and why they came in. But I never received his name or anything to find that out. So I really can't go by that. But my opponent said that he was proud to work with Mayor Roach to make us a sanctuary city. So the one thing that I failed to say at the debate or forum is that how did that work out? He declared then that he helped make us a sanctuary city. They still came in and got the person. It's much better to have a dialogue, much better. And we stay off the radar, and then you won't have these mass roundups. But I'll tell you, if we say you can't come in, it'll be much worse. So I do not like that approach at all. I rather work with people and keep us off the radar as a city that we're not even going to let you come in and get felons. So that's my view on it, and I'm happy to discuss further with anybody. I do not want people, my mom was an immigrant. So I understand the plight of immigrants. The one thing I will tell you, if you want to know my view, I think it should be easier to get legal status. That is my view. So, okay. Howard, what are you going to do with the the housing authority? So I want to find out more what you're referring to. We've heard some horror stories at some places, but I don't know exactly what you're referring to. I'd like to know more, and I'd like people to tell me more, because I'm going to be 100% accessible, as best as I can be on everything, so we can solve the problems for the city. But I'd like to know more about what you're referring to. So if you could just type that in, I'd be happy to get back to that question. Okay, so from Ray, thank you for the detailed response of vacant storefronts. I'm particularly thinking of the former Brother Jimmy's barbecue space on Mamaroneck Avenue, which would be the perfect live music venue, which we are sorely lacking in White Plains. That's a very good suggestion. I'd certainly like to talk to you more about that and see what can be done. Thank you. Dominic, Fire Station 5 on Robertson Avenue has been closed for over 25 years. Would you reopen it, considering the amount of development going on in the city? Yeah, I think that we should have more fire stations. It would be better to have, obviously, more than less. And why do we have less now than we had? Doesn't make sense. We're a growing city. So I believe that, especially in some of the smaller ones that we have closed down, it would be great to have quick response fire stations so they can get to an emergency quicker. I think that is a very good suggestion. I know that they did this to save money because they didn't maintain the buildings. And now they don't maintain the parking garages. This just keeps getting worse. We have to end that cycle. So I would absolutely consider reopening it. So, Mrs. Quackalicious. Hey, Lenny, when you're mayor, how open are you to hearing youth voices? I'm tired of being dismissed to age, even if it's an educated and backed by evidence claim. Well, anybody who knows me is I like to hear from everybody. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. The main people who are running my campaign are from the Youth Bureau. And they're brilliant. I'll just say that right now. I'll tell everybody they're absolutely brilliant. So they're teaching me so much. I hope I'm teaching them as well, but they really are teaching me so much. So I have no problem of hearing youth voices. I applaud that. So thank you very much. Pete, tell them to get the garage fixed near the train station. It's costing me a ton. Absolutely. So I was told by my opponent after I brought it up that it was falling apart, that because they took great exception to the fact that I said we have crumbling infrastructure. And this is much before that parking garage had a partial collapse on one of the floors. And I mentioned the train station was one of the first, that was one of the first issues I said, because I was told I couldn't name one place that had a problem, and that was the first one. And he said that he told them they have to fix it, but it should have never have gotten that way. Doors hanging off the hinges, caution tape everywhere, and concrete on the ground. I know cars had to get pummeled by this stuff. It was just terrible. They did have a little piece of caution tape covering a stairwell that was in such disrepair. I wanted to know how that was going to stop a child from falling down there. It was just terrible. And Howard, thank you for responding to me. When is the city going to raise the pay there? Well, that is going to, if I get elected, we can reevaluate it. That's what I can say. Now, everything's not going to be just up to me. Obviously, I'm going to have to deal with a common council who may not agree with me on everything. But I will certainly make every voice here and fight as hard as I can to make sure everybody is treated fairly. So I appreciate that, and I expect everybody who even came on this to stay, if elected, to stay in touch with me so we can keep this going. Larry, will crime be public and not swept under the rug? We need to be informed of dangerous people in our community. Oh, I agree. Because if you hide it, it's never going to be fixed. If it's swept under the rug, then we're not safe. So truly, that won't happen. We're going to make sure that everybody's aware of the dangers within their city, and we're going to respond to them, more importantly. Okay, from Pete, that it's been, I think that they like the extra revenue from tickets. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's short-sighted though. If you can keep increasing them, get more and more revenue, and then we're completely out of business. So if you just take it to the extreme, you see where it goes. So there's a balance to everything, and we have to roll that back. So Wayne, there should not be a full ban of gas leaf blowers in White Plains. What are my views on that? So this is a very touchy subject around White Plains because some people hate the gas leaf blowers, and they hate it for a couple of different reasons. They say that they don't like the emissions, and I get it. Some of them, especially the 2-cycle ones, are smelly and they're loud. But what we did is during leaf time, we allowed them. But you can also, again, knee-jerk reaction. They passed legislation on the reactionary. So people complained and they jump on it. Instead of saying, here's the standard at which they must meet. Here's the decibel level. This is the hours they have to be. And they're used during these months. Because what's happened now, one morning I woke up and I heard very loud noise, and it was a box truck parked on my block, and they open up the door, and I watched it then again, and they have a diesel generator on it, and they had shelves full of batteries that they're charging. That was louder and more smelly than all the leaf blowers. So people have to get around things to get their job done, and that's what they do. So we have to be reasonable. This should have been well thought out. Do they want to impose time restrictions in certain times of the year? And also they can regulate that they have to, if they want to say 4-cycle, for example, and say they have to meet a certain decibel level, they eliminate most of the problem. And it's only being used during the worst time of the year, during the leaf season. So I think that there is a balance to everything instead of knee-jerk reactionary legislation. From Lucio, we need you, buddy. We need a change. Thank you very much. And from Radium, will you still keep the city of White Plains involved and consider people's views once you are elected mayor next Tuesday? Absolutely. Anybody who knows me I'm completely approachable. You can talk to me about anything. If I have the answer, I'm going to tell you. And if you have a differing view, I don't get upset. I want to discuss it and find out if I'm wrong or not. And we have discussion. That's what this is all about. So absolutely, I will be approachable. Mrs. Quackalicious, how do you feel about the trash littered around our city? It makes our city unpleasant and, quite frankly, a gross area to be in. Well, I agree. I see it all the time. We do have these trash receptacles that they invested in that are electronic, and they don't work. The old trash receptacles work much better where someone came and collected the trash. I think that's the first thing. So I saw them broken on Mamaroneck Avenue. So that's the first thing. And then we got to look at a better program for this. And people shouldn't be allowed to litter. I think if they saw a police presence and people got, ticketed for littering, I think it would stop. It would at least get better. Lenny, looking forward to you as mayor. Please let me know if there's anything I could do to support you once you are mayor. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd like you to contact us. You can contact me even now if you want, and we can put you on a list because I want to stay in touch with you. So the website is lennyformayor.com. You can go there. The email address is team@lennyformayor.com. Email us, and I want you to stay in touch. And absolutely, I'll need everyone's support. This isn't about me. This is about everybody else. So, okay. Howard, thank you for the great job and your insights. Thank you so much, Howard. I do appreciate it. This is not really my forte. I'm not a career politician. I just want to have open, honest dialogue with everyone. And we build this city together. We make it what is best for our residents. So thank you. Okay. Cervanella 4. Police presence on Mamaroneck Avenue is needed. All the double parkers. I've heard that quite a bit. Also, some people have asked, can we make Mamaroneck Avenue 15-minute parking? And that would help a lot of things. So I'm looking into that already. So that people who have to run in and do certain things, that the traffic keeps moving on Mamaroneck Avenue, and that might help solve some of the double parkers. And I know the police are trying to curb that because I see the cruisers always going in back of the double parkers. But it is a serious problem, especially now. A lot of people are into, just picking up their food. So they pull in front of a place, they double park, and they put on their flashers. And it's really causing a problem. I see it every day. So I agree. We definitely have to look into that. And I do want to look into the 15-minute parking. So if someone is actually going to a restaurant, they pull in a parking lot in the rear. And if they're just picking something up, they can pull on into one of the 15-minute spaces. So I'll look into that. This is John. I lived in the city for 65 years. All my family still live there, went through school, worked for 39 years, and I've never seen someone take the shots in an open forum as you have. And when you're mayor on November 3rd, will continue to be as open as you are now. People you see, what you will get him in as your mayor. John, yes. So actually I misread. It's November 4th. That just flew by. I apologize. Thank you so much, John. And I really appreciate that. And I plan on doing these during the week as well, because I'm sure what I said will prompt other questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. Larry, also thanking you for stopping down by the water department and informing us of what's happening. Thank you so much. Sir Vanilla, would all of Mamaroneck Avenue be 15 minutes or select spots? I don't know, quite frankly. I'd like to have that studied. It'd be a quick study, see what would be the best way. I also would want to have the business owners be involved in that so we can query what would be best for them. We want to make this best for everyone. So it's the end of the time for tonight, but we will be doing more of these. So please develop questions. Please visit our website, lennyformayor.com. You can email any questions to team@lennyformayor.com. We will try and do more live sessions very soon. And we need volunteers. Remember to vote. Early voting runs through November 2nd, and Election Day is November 4th. Please go out and vote for me. This is a very important election. I believe the city's at an inflection point. We all see it. A lot has happened here. I want to work with everyone. I am a unity candidate. If for people who don't know this, is I had to pick a common council slate to run with me. And I didn't want to know their party affiliation. I wanted to know what they felt the problems are and what they thought on how we could correct them. And then I picked 3 people. And then I found out what party they're in. And 2 happened to be Democrats and one's an independent. So this is not a party race. This is about what's important and make sure that this government works for all people, all neighborhoods in White Plains. And I want to hear from everyone. So thank you so much. So if everybody likes this, what I'd like to do is keep this type of thing going even when I'm mayor. We can schedule these periodically. I'd love to have this. We can work out the form. We can make it better because this is on a shoestring budget right now, but we can make this much better and we can involve everyone. So thank you very much for all your participation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.